This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, with the Packers in their offseason, they'll get back into action for training camp on July 23rd. Their family night will be August 2nd, but July 25th, that's when Packers president and CEO Mark Murphy steps down and passes the torch to Ed Policy. When asked about what he will do year one as new Packers president and CEO, Policy had this to say.
The entire organization really exists for three things and three things only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community. So I'll be really focused on those three things, and the next big thing will be a kind of a culmination of all of them. I mean, we will continue first and foremost to focus on fielding a very competitive football team that's hopefully competing for championships. To keep the Packers in Green Bay, the big things there will be continuing to maintain and evolve Lambeau Field so that it remains not just iconic, but also state-of-the-art. We also have to continue to operate a very sound business so that it can support the strong football team. And then we do have to continue to strengthen our community through things like Titletown, other philanthropic efforts, and just all the community involvement that we have.
Policy takes over nearly after 18 years of Mark Murphy at the helm.
For nearly 40 years, ABC Wisconsin Apprenticeship has been helping men and women transform themselves into highly skilled trade professionals. These skills are in demand and provide strong wages and benefits for a bright future. If you're a hands-on person who likes the feeling when you get projects done, apprenticeship could be for you. Go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Coming off a 5-3 loss in Wrigley last night to the Cubs. Game 2 will have Jacob Mizorowski making his second Major League start, as he'll be opposite of Jamison Talion, who goes for his sixth consecutive win for Chicago. First pitch is at 7:05. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
The Packers, the entire organization really exists for three things and three things only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's the voice of Packers' incoming president and CEO. Still think he's got a couple of weeks before he's coronated. That's Ed Policy. I still can't believe that's his name. And I know that it's a name that's been around the NFL because his dad was with the Niners, and I think he was at one point involved with the Browns too. Like, it's a football family. It's just a funny name. I said 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even like 5 or 6 years ago, I can't remember, when Ed Policy was first kind of identified as Mark Murphy's successor, and he was talked about as Mark Murphy's successor. I remember my first reaction to the name Ed Policy, knowing nothing about him, and it is still my reaction today. That sounds like the character that would be written in South Park to be in charge of a football team. Like, oh, the guy who's the CEO of the company, obviously his last name is Policy. Mr. Policy. Like, that's just really good analysis, by the way. That's why you tune into this show, is for South Park comparisons and analysis of people's names. I know that's why you're here. That's where we're going to begin tonight. It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Lots of Packers items on the table today. Ed Policy doing a full force media tour, like he's releasing a book or like it's a press tour for a movie. He talked with just about everyone. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday. He caught up with Mike Clemens. Mike Clemens got a legit one-on-one with him. I'm going to play that for you. It's about 4 or 5 minutes long. It's the perfect length. It's the things you need to know and nothing that you don't. It's like a perfect 4.5 minutes. Just Mike Clemens and Ed Policy. I'm going to play that for you at the bottom of this hour and the bottom of the next hour. So you're going to hear that about 4:35 and about 5:35. We're going to pick over those comments and talk about them throughout the show as well. But I really just want to give you the whole thing because Mike did an awesome job. And I know the clip of Ed Policy and Dominique Yates, who's at the Journal Sentinel's kind of been circulating on Twitter, and people have been reacting strongly to some of the things that he said or some of the things that he didn't say. So it's front of mind. People are talking about it. We're going to pick it apart and talk about it, but I want to give you the full thing at the bottom of this first hour and at the bottom of the second hour, 4:35 and 5:35. You'll hear that conversation with Mike Clemens completely uninterrupted. You'll just get to sit back and take it in. And then today we learned that Jaire Alexander signed with the Ravens. And we got the money, we got the contract details, we got the specific contract details, we got everything, which is great because I let's not drag this out. I don't want to talk about Jaire today and then be like, well, we'll wait for the real numbers and then get the real numbers tomorrow and do it all over again. So we can do the whole thing. We got the full Megillah. Jaire Alexander with the Ravens, contract details and all. So we'll talk about that tonight as well. I know we normally begin the show with what happened last night, but the Stanley Cup was pretty, like, we've seen that game already. Like, Stu Skinner let a couple go by in the first period, and the game was basically over from there. That's nothing new. The Brewers lost to the Cubs. Rivalry game, big series, but really nothing new there. Like, the Brewers are pretty good, not great. And the Cubs, even when they haven't been scoring runs in bunches, their offense has quieted down a little bit in the last few weeks, still winning games. The bullpen's still really good. So last night between the Brewers and the Cubs, that was nothing new. It seems as though the game tonight is in question because it's been raining in Chicago. It's been raining here, at least in Madison. I went to get my hair cut this afternoon. If you're watching the live stream, thank you. I'm sure I already have dozens of comments. Hey, Clemhead Mike. Hey, I hadn't even opened the chat yet, but Clemhead Mike on YouTube says, looking good. Thank you. I don't know if that's a comment on my haircut, but I did go get a haircut and I got wet in the process because it's raining pretty good. I think it's raining down in Chicago as well. Kurt Hogue posting pictures. The tarp's on the field, so we'll see if that game is played tonight. It's two, I don't know if they're aces, but Jamison Tyone has probably been the best Cubs starter. They've been without Justin Steele this season. So I could be, maybe there's been a starting pitcher who's better, but Tyone has been excellent. And Mizorowski is as good as anybody else. I don't know that the Brewers have a clear-cut ace. I think most people would say I'd want Freddie Peralta to take the ball in a one-game wild card right now, even though those don't exist anymore. But the difference between Peralta, Priester, Mizorowski, it's all kind of one and the same. So we'll see if that game gets in tonight. But I want to talk mostly about the Packers tonight, and I'll take your calls on it as well at 608-321-1670. You can comment on the live stream, as Clemhead Mike has done, and as Ed has done on Facebook, people chiming in on all sorts of platforms. You can watch the show over there as well. This is the spiel that Ed Policy gave to Mike Clemens. I saw he give it to Dominique Yates. This is his thing. You could clearly tell in all the interviews that you heard and saw when he did this media tour that he had his talking points. And I'm not like minimizing the job that he done, saying he obviously rehearsed this, but it was clear that these are the things that I'm going to use to outline my process and my tenure with the Packers as I take over for Mark Murphy. These are the things that have been important to the Packers, the things that will continue to be important to the Packers. And he identified 3 bullet points. So I'm going to play for you. This is about a 45-second exchange between him and Mike Clemens. And you can clearly, I mean, he's robotic. And with a last name like Policy, not a surprise. 1, 2, 3. These are the 3 things that are important to me and by extension important to the Green Bay Packers franchise.
The Packers, the entire organization really exists for 3 things and 3 things only. And that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community. So I'll be really focused on those 3 things. And the next big thing will be a kind of a culmination of all of them. I mean, we will continue first and foremost to focus on fielding a very competitive football team that's hopefully competing for championships. On the keep the Packers in Green Bay, the big things there will be continuing to maintain and evolve Lambeau Field so that it remains not just iconic, but also state-of-the-art. We also have to continue to operate a very sound business so that it can support the strong football team. And then we do have to continue to strengthen our community through things like Titletown, other philanthropic efforts, and just all the community involvement that we have.
So the community involvement and the philanthropy and the things that they do in Green Bay, that's great, I think. I don't know. I'm not up in Green Bay. I'm not closely following what their community foundations and charities do. That's great. They should continue to do that. All multi-million or multi-billion-dollar sports entities and company. If there's a company that's making that much money, employing people in the community, like, they should do their part to give back to that community, enrich that community. I'm going to set that to the side. And I just want to focus on the first 2 things that he said. Win football games. And the second being keep the Packers in Green Bay. Because those are the 2 things that have people's undies in a bundle. So let's listen one more time. Just to the first half, and then I'll cut it off. Let's start with the first part. Thing number 1 is winning football games.
The Packers, the entire organization really exists for 3 things and 3 things only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community.
To win football games, number 1. He says it so matter-of-factly and so succinctly. It's not something that he's harping on. No, he's not particularly harping on any of these things. But it's not like he said, we want to win football games. And you know what? We not only just want to win football games, we want to win as many as possible. We want to win every single game, and we want to make it into the playoffs, and we want to win championships. The number 1 goal of this organization is win championships, Super Bowls, and rings, and titles, and banners, and that thing. He just very plainly, succinctly, matter-of-factly says, win football games. And when I read this quote and when I listened to it, I said, that's not going to be good enough for people. People are not going to like that, because there is a group of Packers fans, and I think a pretty sizable group of Packers fans. I know these people exist because we hear from these people on calls, on our shows, and I see these comments on social media. There's plenty of Packers fans who believe that the Packers are kind of just okay with winning a certain number of games, getting into the playoffs, being in the mix, and that's good. And I don't know that that's always been something that Packers fans have believed. Like, I don't know if people were saying that in the 90s or the early 2000s with Favre. I can just kind of say post 2010, Ted Thompson operated in a way that was very conservative. He did not use free agency. They didn't often swing big trades. It's not like he's Les Snead in the Rams giving up multiple premium picks to go get a player or trading this for that. Like, Ted Thompson was very steady Eddie, conservative with the way that he ran the team. And I think for most of his tenure, the way he operated was good enough. They won a Super Bowl in 2010. I think the team in 2011 was talented enough. They were more than good enough in 2014. They just didn't get the job done. I don't think Ted Thompson, for the majority of his tenure as the Packers general manager, prohibited them from winning anything at the highest level. At the very end, his last couple of years, it's almost like Ted Thompson became even more Ted Thompson-y. He's like, I know we almost never use free agency. Now we're never going to use free agency. You know what I mean? I know we never really made trades. Now we're absolutely never, ever going to make trades. And I know we draft players who are sometimes projects, or sometimes I know people complain about picks like Demarius Randall or Dayton Jones or Quentin Rollins, where it's like you're trying to take a guy who doesn't really play a position and like square peg round hole. It's the expression we always heard. Like, Ted Thompson leaned even more into Ted Thompson. And I do think at the end it did hurt the Packers. I think there were moves that needed to be made or things that needed to be, handled a little bit differently at the very end. But because of the way that Ted Thompson ran things for a long time, there were plenty of Packers fans who started to believe they're okay with just winning enough games. They're okay with just getting into the playoffs, cashing those playoff checks, being just relevant enough, and that's good. Those people exist. Even though Brian Gutekunst has spent a bunch in free agency and like he hasn't been afraid to trade up in the draft and get guys, like people forget they traded up almost a full round to take Christian Watson. Like, they haven't been afraid to make moves and spend money. In fact, anytime Brian Gutekunst has had money to spend, he's spent it. And yet there's lots of Packers fans that still believe they just want to win enough games. They want to win games. They don't want to win championships. So when Ed Policy says the first goal of the Packers franchise is to win games, I said, oh, that's not good enough. Like, people, that's not juicy enough. That's not serious enough. And I feel like every couple of months on this show, I have to be the guy that interprets the words of an owner or a general manager or a figurehead. Of course, going back to what Mark Attanasio said, I think back in February when he said, well, is it my job to win a World Series, or is it, fun and entertainment and passion? And we've been over this 6 ways till Sunday. That wasn't a conversation about Yelich, and I kind of get what Attanasio was saying, but then again, don't say it, right? Don't give fans a reason to hear something a certain way. Don't give fans a reason to, or just don't talk at all. Like, maybe Mark Attanasio just didn't talk to the media, but then if he doesn't talk to the media, we rip him for not being available to the media and not, communicating with his fans. So a little bit of a no-win proposition for owners and general managers too. We want them to speak, but they can't always be honest. But we want them to be honest. Like, they're all too often in a spot where they can't win. This whole thing could have been avoided if, instead of saying win games, Ed Policy said, we want to win games and win championships. Box checked. No one bats an eye. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But as president and CEO and the de facto owner in his role of an NFL team, you want to convey certain messages and you want to communicate certain things. And I think saying we want to win championships rather than saying win games, although I think that's what he meant, pretty sure that's what he meant. You just, placate your fans a little bit. Packers, they don't placate fans. They don't placate anybody, almost to a fault. Like, a little placating is sometimes okay. You don't want to make every single move and handle every single press conference with the idea of placating and playing to your fans and preaching the choir. But every once in a while, you know what? The choir needs a little preaching too. I grew up going to Catholic school. I went to mass twice a week. That choir, every once in a while, they need to be humbled too. They think they're so high and mighty up there with their guitars and their microphones and their harmony. Every once in a while, you know what? Every once in a while, you do need to preach to the choir just a bit. So placate the fans every once in a while. Ed Policy say, instead of saying winning games, just say win championships. Just check that box and we're all good. The most interesting part of this answer is where he talks about keeping the Packers in Green Bay. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Let's pick this up. I don't know exactly where that comment is, but we'll just roll it here until he says it.
So I'll be really focused on those three things. And the next big thing will be a kind of a culmination of all of them. I mean, we will continue first and foremost to focus on fielding a very competitive football team that's hopefully competing for championships. On the keep the Packers in Green Bay, the big things there will be continuing to maintain and evolve Lambeau Field so that it remains not just iconic, but also state of the art. We also have to continue to operate a very sound business so that it can support the strong football team. And then we do have to.
So lastly, he talks about philanthropy. In his first comment, he gives those 3 bullet points: win games, keep the Packers in Green Bay, and then, enrich our community. When he says keep the Packers in Green Bay, I saw people on the internet and we heard people calling and texting on Bill's show today who blew their lid a little bit. What do you mean keep the Packers in Green Bay? Anybody who even thinks about that possibility shouldn't be in charge. And I saw Homer from ESPN in Milwaukee freaking out about this, and people getting mad at Homer for his takes, which happened a couple weeks ago with Jackson Churio too. When Ed Policy says we need to be vigilant, or one of our goals is to keep the Packers in Green Bay, I hear that and I interpret that as we need to keep the Packers financially viable. It's not like the Packers are on the doorstep of moving to, fill in the blank. We always say Nashville because that's the example we use for the Brewers, but the Titans are in Tennessee. So I don't know, Salt Lake City, Sacramento, Raleigh, whatever. The Packers are not really, the way I understand it, the Packers are not in danger of being picked up and relocated. In fact, the bylaws, which I should read because I am a shareholder, but I'm not a lawyer, I'm a radio host. But the way I believe it, and I think I'm believing correctly, the Packers can't up and move. It's like written into the bylaws and the way that the team is legislated. There's poison pills where if that happens, they dissolve. And the stock and the money and all of it is basically doled out to local charities and local bars. Like, it's not an option. It can't happen. So when Ed Policy says we need to keep the Packers in Green Bay, he's not saying we need to prevent them from being relocated from Green Bay to Timbuktu or Temecula, wherever. He's saying we need to make sure this business remains healthy and viable and stable. And I know the NFL has revenue sharing, and I know the Packers have mountains of money, but Packers fans, you should know this. They're competing with owners and ownership groups like the Waltons, who have billions, and Jerry Jones, who has unbelievable wealth, and Stan Kroenke and other, like these ownerships, David Tepper in Charlotte. Like, they have money, they have NFL money, and then they have mountains of other money that they could use on the football thing if they needed. The Packers aren't really like that. And now the NFL is okayed, the entrance of venture capital into the NFL, so owners can go out and recruit more money that way as well, which I don't really like. We talked about that with Rich Ryman on Bill's show earlier today. Maybe I'll play you a clip or two of that interview to kind of fill in the cracks throughout the rest of the show until 6 o'clock. Ed Policy is not talking about preventing the Packers from moving from Green Bay to wherever the heck. He's saying we need to make sure that we keep our books in order and remain financially solid by upkeeping our stadium, staying on top of the finances and this, that, and the other thing. The Packers just have financial obligations and responsibilities that other NFL teams don't have. Because if the Broncos spend a little bit of too much money and then, we need some stadium repairs and then we need this and that and the other thing, oops, we went over budget, Sam Walton or the descendant of Sam Walton, whoever technically owns the Broncos now, can just say, let me go grab a couple of bags of money off of my mountain of money that exists separate from this NFL thing, and we'll deal with it and we'll fix it. The Packers really don't have that luxury. So Packers fans, don't be naive. The Packers aren't moving, but in a business sense, they could get themselves into trouble to the point where it's difficult for them to exist in the way they currently are. And that's what Ed Policy is getting at. So no, they're not threatening to move. They're not leveraging anything against Green Bay, although maybe because, they've been going at it with Brown County and the city of Green Bay a little bit. That's part of it. That's posturing. Professional sports, that's always going to exist in these individual markets and cities. But don't be naive and don't think the Packers are infallible and these concerns aren't legitimate, because they are. They're operating in a market and in a business landscape where I don't even know that they have an arm tied behind their back. They just have different arms. They have different body parts. They have different financial pulleys and levers. And don't be so naive and don't be so silly to think that those things don't matter for the Packers, because they do. Let's take a 3-minute break. I see the hotline ringing, which I think means Mike Clemens. He might have something to pass along on the other side. So we'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. The Wisco Sports Show. Be right back.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels here. Are your two wheels revved up? Because here it comes. The Big River Rally, where the river meets the road. It rolls into La Crosse on June 27th and 28th. Join us for a weekend packed with action. Stunt shows, a killer bike show, food trucks, all kinds of awesome vendors. Friday, Rod's River Run, with Texas Hippie Coalition lighting up the stage that night. Then Saturday, it's the Big River Rally Ride. Miles and miles of pure freedom. Then Saturday night, Drowning Pool rocks the house. Grab your tickets right now. BigRiverRally.com. That's BigRiverRally.com, and I'll see you there.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The entire organization really exists for 3 things and 3 things only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community.
One more time, that's Ed Policy. It's part of a longer conversation with Mike Clemens. You're going to hear that in about 10 minutes. I'm going to play it for you at 4:35 and 5:35. It's a perfect little 4.5 minute or so back and forth with everything that you need. No silly chit chat about things that you don't need, how he came to be a part of the Packers organization, his vision for it moving forward, his relationship with the general manager and the coach, and all that good stuff. And you're going to hear that in about 10 minutes. But right now, we're going to connect live with Mike Clemens, who is giving us a call to talk a little bit more about this, because Packers fans are worked up, Mike, and we were talking a bit off the air. You knew recording this interview and listening to Ed Policy, the Packers fans were going to hear some of these comments and maybe get some ideas and get frustrated a little bit.
Yeah, I smiled when Ed said it. I go, oh, man.
Yeah.
And I'm looking over at the PR people, and they're like, oh, yeah, hey, that's Ed, yeah. So here's the deal. I mean, I remember we started talking about this, and when Mark Murphy was answering a fan mail thing in his monthly, what's it called, Take 5 on the website, team website, when someone said, hey, how much longer are you going to do this? And he said, well, I got to retire when I'm 70. That's part of the rules. Kind of reminded us all of that. And I'm like, oh, man, that is start of the clock. And I started talking about regime change and how many more swings, at bat are Gutekunst and LaFleur going to get with this team. And that's now coming down this summer.
Yeah.
And and you could see it start to sink in toward the end of last season and now this off season. Like, here's this guy that's been off to the side of Mark Murphy, who's been, doing all the legwork on this stuff like Titletown and contracts and all this. Both him and Murphy are attorneys. Did you know that?
Yeah. So I didn't know that about Murphy. I knew that about Ed Policy. I didn't know that about Mark Murphy. I guess I should have known that. I knew he was a former player, and that's about it.
Well, getting to know these guys a few years ago, that also said a lot to me about, oh yeah, you know what? How can that's helpful as the head of, I don't know, a government, a sports team that when not only gigantic $250 million contracts with your quarterback, but all the contracts you get to sign with construction guys and reading contracts and knowing what the law is and knowing what your rights as a business are.
The state and the county and the city and all that stuff. Yeah.
All that stuff, leases and all that kind of stuff. So, and so there's Ed all along the way. Whereas Mark Murphy came in from the outside, athletic director, after, you'd had Bob Harlan for all those years. So a whole bunch of fresh ideas. Under Bob, here's the thing. When Ed Policy says keeping the franchise in Green Bay, that's like the mayor of your city saying, making sure the water's clean.
Yep. It's like
that's your job.
It's a non-starter.
If you're the general manager of a broadcast station, what's your number one thing?
Keep all the stations on the air.
Keeping it on the air. So that's the bottom line. And as you say, pay attention to what's going on. We're in a league, in a world of these multi-billionaires that are powerful. And if you've got a 35-year-old new billionaire that just bought an NFL team and he's sitting at the table of owners across from these guys from Green Bay, you're going to leave the meeting saying, why do we still have Green Bay? Mm-hmm. I mean, if we want to, do you know how much money we could make if it was the Munich Packers?
Yep.
We just take these clowns out of tiny little Green Bay, which nobody likes to go to. Let's give Germany, let's make the big G on the side of the helmet for Germany, not Green Bay.
Yeah.
Because that's where this is going.
Well,
right?
I feel like we've seen that. It's a trope for like an 80s movie where the kid takes over and he's like, why are we doing it this way? Why don't we, think about doing it this way? And especially kids who are maybe kids of billionaires, maybe not the best bit of perspective about the world and how it runs. These are the people who are coming into power across the NFL. And then as Rich Ryman talked about with Bill earlier today in the third hour of his show, now private equity is entering the league. So owners can go recruit real-time billionaires, trillionaires to come in and infuse more cash into their team.
Ed was born in 1970. His dad was an attorney and an executive and eventually went to work for the DeBartolo family, who had bought the 49ers in the late 70s. And then Carmen Policy took over as the 49ers president, a smart, savvy business guy, vice president, counsel to the owner during all the glory years, right? Bill Walsh is hired, Joe Montana, you're winning Super Bowls back to back. And after a long run there as the president and then eventual CEO of the 49ers, then Carmen went to work for the Cleveland Browns. What happened to the Cleveland Browns? Well, they moved.
I was going to say, well, nothing good, because nothing good has ever happened to them, but they did in fact move. Yes.
Right. And these guys are from Ohio originally, the Policy family from Youngstown and all that. I was talking to Ed a little bit about that because There's some things that my dad had opened up a chain of stores and started in Mentor, Ohio, and that was owned by the DeBartolo family. Eddie DeBartolo, when he was kind of a snotty 16-year-old,
Yeah.
he's now in the Hall of Fame, right, for his ownership of the 49ers all those years.
Yeah.
He used to come into my father's men's clothing store and get a hot suit and some pants and some shirts and stuff, say, hey, put it in my tab. And Ed said to me yesterday, yeah, it's not like you're going to argue with the kids whose dad owns the mall, right?
Yep.
Right?
It just doesn't work that way.
No. So the fact is, that's what Ed's job is. Now the other thing I think is very interesting is he also had said to the writers, they said, hey, what about the contract for Gutekunst and LaFleur? Yeah, I'm not going to do anything this year. Whoa, hi, here's your new boss. Let's see how you do this season.
Yeah.
So what have you done for me lately? Kind of a business. Now the fact of the matter is they're both they have 2 years left, Goody and LaFleur, on their contracts.
But that basically means they got 1 year left because most people in Ed Policy came out and said this clearly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Well, we're not going to go into them with a lame duck year. So they're going to decide after this year to extend or, ostensibly move on if that's what they want to do.
Right. And he says, I would never, have guys on a 1 year deal. If this was, you don't have coaches on a 1 year, you got 1 year left. You wouldn't do that. So in other words, that decision will be made apparently, by next January or so, or February, as to whether that they extend them another year, because they would not want to go into the 26th season. This is the final year of your contract. That just doesn't work. So that was pretty interesting. But
do you think there's a world in which he would keep one but not the other if this season goes sideways?
You mean like keep Goody and get another head coach?
Yeah. Or vice versa. Typically, I prefer the general manager to hire the head coach or to be there before the head coach. And I know this, we're just spitballing and we're just talking, but if things go sideways this year, could you see a world where maybe Ed Policy really loves one of the two but not the other?
Yeah. Because I know that my sense was they kind of has slipped back into the Ted Thompson model. That Mark Murphy, trust Goody, because Goody was there at his side in his first year. Goody came to him and was assessing what was wrong with the McCarthy era, and that it was time to make a change there, and was there for the hiring of LaFleur. So even though these guys talk about that it's Goody, LaFleur, and Russ Ball, the vice president of finance, all report, to the CEO and general manager, to the CEO, to the president, to Mark Murphy, and now Ed Policy. It's still kind of leaned toward Goody, but what is Gutekunst Ed Policy's guy? That we're going to find out. So just know this: that the new Packer president, who's going to be taking over on July 25th, Mark Murphy will MC that shareholders meeting. It's his last year as the vice president or as the president and CEO. So he'll be basically reporting on his final fiscal year and then they have all the different reports from the different departments and everything. And then at the end, he'll hand it over, and then Ed will say a few words at the end of the meeting. Gutekunst will speak to it as well. That's what they do every year. But Ed Policy, born in 1970, in his 50s, so this means he could have this job for about 15 years or so. His dad, president of the 49ers, then of the Browns. Ed gets a degree in law, then gets involved in, and always has been around football, right? He grew up around football, the 49ers and the Browns. And then he gets a job, besides an attorney for a couple of years, he gets into the Arena Football League, eventually becomes the commissioner of that, then gets a job assisting executives in the NFL before he got hired by Green Bay. And I asked him how that came about. You'll hear that in the interview. But he's been there. He's been Mark Murphy's right-hand man through Titletown and all these other the draft, all that stuff. He's been the guy to help execute those projects. And the big difference for this Packers organization is that genesis. There's that Dominic Olechek, who was he hired Lombardi, and they kept him around for 25 years, probably too long. And then there's Judge Perrins, who ran the team in the 80s or so. Finally, the team woke up and said, "Let's get an executive," and they went with Bob Harland, right? Yep. And then to Mark Murphy, and now to Ed, and now they're ready to compete as still this little town with these other huge markets with billionaires that are trying to, cover the world with the NFL. That's what this guy's walking into.
Well, and it's not by accident, right? That's intentional, as he talked about, right? There's a lot of thought and consideration that goes into that, operating in this market the way that they do. Well, Mike, I'm sure as anything comes up with the Packers or with certainly Ed Policy in the next couple of days and weeks, you will keep us in the loop. Thank you. I'm going to play your full exchange with him on the other side of this break.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you, Mike. Always nice when we get a little surprise Mike Clemens when I see that little green hotline light up when he calls in. When we come back, you're going to hear 4.5 minutes. It's Mike Clemens, Ed Policy going back and forth. And then towards the end of this hour and the beginning of the 5 o'clock hour, I want to talk about Jaire Alexander because he signed with the Ravens. I'll give you the contract details and maybe we can kind of fill in some of the gaps, some things that we've been wondering. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Mike Clemens and Ed Policy next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show presented today by La Crosse Beer House, corner of 3rd and Pearl in downtown La Crosse. It's going to be hot this weekend. See totals in the 90s around the state of Wisconsin. Good opportunity to head downtown and get a big, fat, iced mug of delicious German beer. Maybe one of their brats. You can get them made a couple different ways. They source their sausage right up the hill, Bubba's Meats on the south side of La Crosse. I also recommend the pretzel. The bacon on a stick is delicious. The spätzle or the schnitzel or anything. Plus, when it's not 90 degrees, which is most days, right, they throw open those big garage doors downtown and you can watch the world go by and pop in and out. It's great spots. Appreciate La Crosse Beer House for being a part of the show. Mike Clemens, I've been teasing this. We just talked with him in the last segment. So if you missed that conversation, he kind of added some color and some necessary details to this conversation that you're about to hear. And everything else going on with the Packers is a transition from Mark Murphy to Ed Policy. Here's a 4-minute one-on-one that he did yesterday or late on Monday. Mike sends us so much good audio, it all starts to get buried in my mind. This is 4 minutes, everything you need to know about Ed Policy and nothing that you don't. So we're just going to listen to this in its entirety. Enjoy.
All right, thanks. With the Packers' new president and chief executive officer, Ed Policy. Hi, Ed. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Thanks so much for coming to Lambeau Field.
You know, I think about your father, Carmen, with the 49ers and then later the Browns. You get the law degree, which I think serves a guy in this role so well, not only for player contracts, but the contracts you use to the buildings that you have. Commissioner of the Arena Football League, and then you get involved in the NFL. Then it gets to be 2012. And how did it come about that you joined the Packers? What made your decision to join the staff here?
Sure. So at the time, as you pointed out, I had a background in professional football, and I was working for the National Football League after the Arena Football League as a consultant. And my dream was to work for a team, though. And at the time, I had a short list of about 5 teams that I would love to work for. Now, there are only 32 of them, so you pretty much go where the work is. But there were 5 that I'd really be excited about joining, and the Packers were one of them. The Packers happened to have an opening. I didn't know Mark Murphy at the time, but Mark was going to be in New York, and he had hired a search firm. He had hired a gentleman named Jed Hughes to help him with this recruitment. And when Mark was in New York, I interviewed with him at his hotel, and we hit it off, and I was here a few months later.
In 2019, Mark decides to make a change in terms of structure, where the general manager, the head coach, vice president of finance report to the president and CEO. What have you thought about that now as you take over?
Yeah, well, I was with Mark. I was in the room with Mark when he decided to make that change. And, I think he made it for sound reasons. And I think it's worked out well so far. I really do. I think we've got 3 excellent people in football leadership positions right now, and they're all working extremely well together. So you just can't argue with results. I think it's worked. I would continue to keep that structure for the time being and continue to keep those 3 individuals in their current roles. We've got flexibility. If we ever feel that structure is not working for us, we can certainly change the structure to whatever form we think would be best. Ultimately, we're here to do what's best for the Green Bay Packers organization, so that's what we'll do.
I think what's unique about your appointment is, you've been here through all these things, through Titletown, renovations to the football operations building, the NFL draft. So in your first year here, what do you see as the next big thing for the franchise?
The Packers, the entire organization really exists for 3 things and 3 things only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community. So I'll be really focused on those three things. And the next big thing will be a kind of a culmination of all of them. I mean, we will continue first and foremost to focus on fielding a very competitive football team that's hopefully competing for championships. On the Keep the Packers in Green Bay, the big things there will be continuing to maintain and evolve Lambeau Field so that it remains not just iconic, but also state of the art. We also have to continue to operate a very sound business so that it can support the strong football team. And then we do have to continue to strengthen our community through things like Titletown, other philanthropic efforts, and just all the community involvement that we have.
Last year, your division, Vikings, Lions, all go to the playoffs. You, and now the Bears with Ben Johnson, head coach. Impressive guy. How do you see this season rolling out for the Packers?
You know, it's pretty exciting because I don't think the entire NFL has ever been more competitive than it is right now. And I think our division is not only the most competitive division in football right now, but maybe in the history of the NFL. So I think it's exciting. I think we've got our work cut out for us, but so do they.
As Packers president and CEO, Ed Policy. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks so much.
Pretty darn good. How about that from Mike Clemens? We're going to play that one more time before the end of the show. At 5:35, so at the bottom of hour number 2. Again, everything that you need, nothing that you don't, a little backstory. I mean, he's been in Green Bay forever, but aside from coach, general manager, and Mark Murphy, like, who have you? Oh, John Eric Sullivan. He's great. He should get a shot to be a general manager. Okay, but do you know anything about? I don't know anything about him. Oh, Russ Ball. He does the numbers. Can you tell me one other thing about? Like, no, we don't know anything about any of these guys, no matter if they've been there for a while or not. So a little nice to get background on Ed Policy, who will succeed Mark Murphy here in just a couple of weeks. When we come back, let's pick at the idea a little bit. We started on this last night, but Mike Clemens, when he joined us about 20 minutes ago, talked about the idea he will not be extending Brian Gutekunst or Matt LaFleur this offseason, which means it'll happen next offseason or it won't happen at all, because he also said we're not going to go into a lame duck year with them. Each has 2 years remaining on their contract. So at the end of next year, you either decide to extend or to move on, which means this year, I think there's a lot on the line every single year for every coach, every general manager, and every team. It's because that's how the NFL works. But this is a huge year, I think, for both general manager and coach, Goody and Matt LaFleur, to prove I'm not just good at this. Like, I can be great and we can win a championship, because I think both coach and GM have proven their wares that they can do a very good job building and coaching a team. Can they do a great job? Right? Like Matt LaFleur, can your team come through in the biggest moments? Brian Gutekunst, can you go from drafting a bunch of guys hitting a bunch of singles and doubles? Can you eventually crank a home run? Because I'm watching Lucas Van Ness and I have questions. You know what I mean? So we'll talk a little bit about that to close up hour number 1. And then at 5 o'clock, I want to talk about Jaire Alexander because he signed today. He signed. We'll also have a couple of minutes on the other side of this break for you to call in and share your thoughts. Apologies, I haven't really opened the phones yet, but we can get to you next as well. 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, good opportunity here to get to some phone calls if you have anything to add to our discussion about Ed Policy and his policies. I cracked myself up. Going to get to Jaire Alexander and his new situation with Baltimore. The contract details, I think they're fascinating. So we'll get to that to start hour number 2. But your phone calls welcome here until 5 o'clock at 608-321-1670. We heard that exchange, that little 4-minute back and forth with Mike Clemens and Ed Policy, and Jay Krebs tweets in, he noticed something that I noticed as well. He says, okay, Ed, walking into the best division in the history of the NFL, excuse maker. So there are a couple things that I've heard from Ed Policy this week and me, because I'm so wise and mature, and I'm not the average fan. I host a radio show, so I'm so smart. I'm kidding, obviously. But I hear some of these things and I go, oh, people aren't going to like that. Or people are going to react to that. I don't think it matters, but people are going to react to it, right? So this comment, I'll play this and then we'll get to a phone call about the division. And Ed Policy's like, it might be the best division in NFL history. I heard that and say, it doesn't matter at all. Who cares what he says? But people aren't going to like that.
You know, it's pretty exciting because I don't think the entire NFL has ever been more competitive than it is right now. And I think our division is not only the most competitive division in football right now, but maybe in the history of the NFL. So I think it's exciting. I think we've got our work cut out for us, but so do they.
Possibly. I don't know. I'm not going back through the divisions. I'm not going to do that. But I think he's right about this might be the most competitive top to bottom the NFL has ever been. And I think that's because there are just so few dumb teams left. There just aren't as many hapless, hopeless, stupid, incompetent teams anymore. There's a couple, but in previous eras, it's like half of the league is poor and broke and stupid. And it's just the industry of sport has just turned into such a moneymaker and such an attractive place to be for smart, competent people in a way that it wasn't years ago. So I think the league's maybe more competitive than it's ever been, but I think that's because there are fewer marks. There are fewer just awful, helpless teams. 608-321-1670. Let's take a call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
What a hump day for Packers news, Grant.
I know. So I was driving into work today. I'm like, what are we going to talk about on Bill's show? Because it's his show, but at some point during the day, Bill will be like, all right, what do we got today? Do we have any guests? And if I got to have some, I can't say, I don't know. So this Ed Policy thing has been a godsend. The Jaire news has been a godsend. I didn't expect to talk basically 2 straight hours of Packers today, but here we are.
Here we are in the middle of June. I'm just pissed that we're not diving deep into Brewers bullpen rotation. No, I'm just kidding. This is fun day. I'm excited for Jaire. It sounds like, he maybe turned down a similar offer for the Packers, but hey, as a guy who's turning 30, he probably wants to be a part of a winning organization. And, he's going for where he thinks he has the best chance, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. My question for you is more about this policy thing, Grant. With Wisconsin sports, as soon as a powerful dude takes power, or a big guy makes a move, right?
Or a woman.
All of a sudden, or a woman.
A-hole. I'm kidding.
Well,
Continue. You're making a good point. Continue.
I won't assume the gender of Chris McIntosh, okay?
Thank
But let's just say when he got into his spot, right, he's like, man, I got to make a name for myself, right?
Yeah.
So this guy is firing the hockey coach, firing the football coach, bringing in his guys, God damn it, right? My guys. And so my question is, like, do you think the transition to Ed Policy sneaky puts a little bit more pressure on LaFleur, or do you think it puts more pressure on the general manager who's out there saying, it's time to win championships, but isn't going to give Jaire Alexander freaking $7 million a year when that clearly makes that position room better. That's kind of what's rattling around in my head today. I think, like, to summarize, Ed Policy is coming in. He's got a lot of ideas for Green Bay. He's looking at this bunch of guys who claim it's time to win now.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, I don't think any caller's feeling really good about this roster competing for a Super Bowl today as is. So seeing the Jaire thing, I think it all kind of ties together. This team, I don't think, feels urgency from the front office. I'm a little concerned with that. So my question for you is, does the policy transition put more fire under LaFleur or Gutekunst?
So I think this is a brilliant discussion. So thank you, Vagabond John, for your call. You gave us a lot. And I didn't know you were going Chris McIntosh, but I should have seen that coming a mile away because God knows you can't help but defend your guy, Paul Chryst, even all these years later. I think Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst are basically the same person. I think Goody is a very good GM, and you could do a lot worse. I think he could maybe do a little better. He hits a lot of singles and doubles in the draft, doesn't swing and miss a whole lot, not a ton of home runs, Like, at his best is a Sal Frelick type player. He's also had drafts where it's like, I don't even know if that was Joey Ortiz level. That might be Vinny Capra level. Now, all general managers have those. But with your swings and misses, with your strikeouts, every once in a while you got to hit one over the fence. And I think Brian Gutekunst's one true home run maybe in his tenure has been Jaire. And then wouldn't, of course he can't stay healthy and they have to get rid of him because such is life in the NFL. I think Brian Gutekunst is good. And you could do a lot worse, but I think you could maybe do a little bit better. And I think the exact same thing is true of Matt LaFleur. I think he's a very good coach, and there's plenty of teams in the NFL that would be happy to have him. I also think there's, 4, 5, 6, 7 coaches who are probably better. So do you blow those guys out in pursuit of something next level? And now we're circling back to the Chris McIntosh, Paul Chryst situation, right? Like, and that's why I think it makes sense for the team, and it makes sense for the purposes of this conversation, that Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur at this moment in time are tied at the hip because their contracts align, and they will both either be up for an extension next offseason or they will be cut loose because Ed Policy came out and said, we're not going to do a lame duck. So the decision on these guys is going to come next offseason, if not before, right? I suppose they could extend them before, but I think he also said that he's not going to do it this offseason. I don't think you hire a new coach and all of a sudden, well, now you're Super Bowl bound. And I don't think you get a new general manager with Matt LaFleur and well, now you're Super Bowl bound. I think they're both very similar. I don't think either one is the problem. But up until this moment in time, I don't know that either guy has proven to be the final solution, which that's poor wording and that, has other implications. But you know what I mean? Like, if you were to ask most Packers fans right now, do you think they will win a Super Bowl with Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur? I feel like at best it would be 50-50. At worst, I think most Packers fans would say, well, based on previous experience and just playing the odds, I guess I'd say no. But does that mean you fire him? Like, that's what's so difficult. You could do a lot worse, but I think you could also do a little better. It's a tough spot. It's a really tough spot to be in. So I don't think I can answer your question, Vagabond John, because I think they're tied at the hip. I think they're either both getting extended or they're both at some point out of here as Ed Policy steps into power. I'd expect they both get extended. That's what I'd bet on. But I also don't know that I'd bet on the Packers winning a Super Bowl in either of their 10 years. Coming up next, let's talk about Jaire Alexander, his new home and his new contract with the Ravens. But first 2 minutes, Ebo will get you updated, and then we'll be right back.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Brewers would fall in their opening game against the Chicago Cubs down in Wrigley 5-3. Starting pitcher Chad Patrick would take the loss, going 5 innings, giving up 6 hits, 4 earned runs while striking out 5. Brewers, though, it was not enough. They would go 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Manager Pat Murphy says despite the loss, it was still a well-played game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good game. A lot of great defensive plays, both ends. They hit in the clutch. They did some clutch hitting, Suzuki's. Homer changed the game. But yeah, I'm proud of our guys. We did some good things. We didn't necessarily hit in big situations, but leaving 10 guys on base or 9, whatever it was. But credit to their pitching staff and credit to their defense. Did a great job, and they got a great lineup.
The Brewers will now send Jacob Mizorowski to the mound for his second Major League start opposite of Jamison Talion. First pitch from Chicago will be at 7:05.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Packers are in their off-season. July 23rd is training camp, and July 25th will be the end of Packers president and CEO Mark Murphy, and begins Ed Policy. What is Policy focusing on for year one?
The entire organization really exists for 3 things and 3 things only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community. So I'll be really focused on those 3 things, and the next big thing will be a kind of a culmination of all of them.
Murphy leaves after nearly 18 years on the job. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Is cornerback a position of need in Baltimore? You heard Sheffy referencing he's joining a team that's pretty stacked across the board.
Yeah, not a frontline need in terms of starting a game tomorrow, needing him on the field for the very first snap, Laura, but this is a team that last year struggled to defend the pass, as you noted. And Jaire Alexander, the best part of this deal, in my opinion, is the fact that it is a 1-year deal. This is a motivated player who, over the past 4 seasons, has been just as likely to be on the field as he is off the field. So Jaire Alexander has a chance to play for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, does not need to be a starter because the Ravens feel really good about their starting trio of Nate Wiggins, the first-round pick last year, of course, Marlon Humphrey, and also Chidobe Awuzie, who they signed this offseason after he was released by the Titans. But the kind of move that the Baltimore Ravens can make in June, that can sort of be like a finishing ingredient for a team that feels like it has the recipe to be a Super Bowl champion this year, Lewis.
The Packers, the entire organization really exists for 3 things and 3 things only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Those comments one more time from Ed Policy, but on the front end of the intro, you heard a little bit from NFL Live today. That's Field Yates talking about Jaire to Baltimore, which is what I want to lead this hour with. And Vagabond John poked at this a little bit when he called in the last segment of hour number 1, and he's like, Jaire wanted to go somewhere where he feels like he can, win a Super Bowl. And I think that was Vagabond John's way of stirring the pot, saying, well, Green Bay's not thought of as a contender. Meanwhile, Baltimore. Can I just say something right now on June 18th, 2025? It's 5:03 p.m. The Ravens are not winning jack this year. They're going to have a great regular season. They're going to probably win 1 playoff game, and we're going to spend the entire week saying, this is the year. And then they're going to dump their pants against the Chiefs again. Like, how many times do people need to see this? I'm not talking to you, listener. I'm talking to analysts writ large. I don't understand how we can keep doing this. I don't understand. Year after year after year, the Ravens have a great defense. The Ravens have a great running game. The Ravens finally got the weapon for Lamar. Lamar's finally playing the best football of his career for the 4th straight year. And every year it's been true. He is excellent. And then we get to the playoffs, and what happens? They don't win because they make the stupid mistakes or Lamar doesn't play well. They are the new Aaron Rodgers Packers of this decade, of the AFC. And I don't understand why people continue to take the cheese. I just don't get it. I gave up on the Ravens with Lamar winning a Super Bowl like 3 years ago because every postseason, it's like, if it's not going to happen this year, then it's never going to happen. And then it doesn't happen. And then fast forward 4 months and we're saying the same exact thing. How many times are you guys going to reach your hand into the bear trap? These Ravens, they don't have a weakness. Holy balls. Look at the team they've said. Lamar, he's playing incredible, you guys. And they finally got the right offensive coordinator. I'm sure. Yep. Yeah, totally. This will be the year. 100%. This will be the year that it happens. Yeah, promise. This is the time, guys. This is It's just I can't believe some of you are such suckers. Again, not talking to you, listener, talking to people on TV and on the radio who can't see what's abundantly obvious. And maybe it's boring. Maybe that's why nobody says it. Maybe that's why people like keep buying into the Ravens. Like, wow, Baltimore, this, that, the other thing. It's like, okay, I promise you. And again, I'll just plant the flag. It's June 18th. I'll tell you, they're not making the Super Bowl this year. They will lose to the Bills. They will lose to the Chiefs. They will lose to the Bengals. They will lose to somebody. They're not making or winning a Super Bowl. They can't. How many times must you see this? I wish it was so easy for everyone else because I tell you what, I feel like Will Hunting. Like, do you know how easy that this isn't hard? Except I feel like Will Hunting, if Will Hunting was a normal person, that was his name in Good Will Hunting, right? Like Will Hunting was a brilliant man. And Louis C.K. talked about this. Like, what a ridiculous premise for a movie. Like, I'm a blue collar worker and I live in Southie and I work on a job site with my hands. I'm a badass, but then also I'm brilliant and I'm a genius and I can talk to girls even though I don't want to because it's a waste of my precious time. Like, what kind of a ridiculous movie, albeit a very good movie. But like, I am Will Hunting in Good Will Hunting. If Will Hunting was a normal person and everyone else in the film, save for Robin Williams, was an absolute moron. Like, that's me with the Baltimore Ravens. I'll just tell you right now, it's not happening. But they signed Jaire. Okay, sure. You know what? You're right. That'll put him over the top. The guy who's played 50% of the games last 3 years. That's what they've been missing. Correct. How could I miss that? That's what I want to begin with in hour number 2. Not necessarily the Ravens, but with Jaire. He signed with the Ravens earlier today. It broke, I don't know, about 12:30. We talked about it on Bill's show. And when this happened, not a total shocker. This seemed likely. He played with Lamar Jackson at Louisville. It's a contending team. They're contending. They're not winning, but they will contend. That much I'm not lying. They're going to win a lot of games, and people will buy in, and people will think they're going to win. They won't, but they will be contending. It's not surprise. He's got that history with Lamar. When it happened, I thought, well, okay, what are the contract details? How much money is he going to make? Because then we can consider what the Packers may have offered or should have offered or shouldn't have offered. So we got the contract details first from Schefter, who said he's making $6 million. And then I'm like, okay, is that total or is that? And then we learned from Schefter, well, actually, he's got the opportunity to make $6 million. There you go. Okay. And who's got the incentive structure? It was Mike Garafolo of NFL Network. Jaire Alexander can earn $500,000 for each of the following playtime thresholds: 35%, 40%, 45%, and 50%. So that's how he makes the extra $2 million. Guys, if he plays half the games, he maxes out his incentives. And I said to Bill when this happened, before I shared this with Bill, I said, Bill, if you were a general manager offering Jaire a contract, you give the base salary, sure. What are the signposts for the incentives? Like what week does he need to hit to start getting in the green? And Bill said, week 12. And I don't know, I suppose I could calculate it really quickly. I don't know what percent 12 is of 17. If I can find it'll take me longer to find the calculator app on my phone than it will be to do the math. So little math lesson at home. I'm a functional mathist. I can do ratios and I can do percentages. Where's the clear button? Bless America. So that would be 12 games if 12 is the threshold. Divided by 17 times 100. That would be 70%. 71, give or take. So Bill, when I asked him, I said, well, Jaire's going to start hitting incentives if I'm doing the contract at 70%. Start hitting at 70. With this contract, Jaire's ending at 50. That's insane. Like, that is unbelievable low-hanging fruit. Hey, if you play in 50 games, you're going to hit your incentives, or 50% of your games, you're going to hit all the incentives. Aaron Rodgers is going to be 42. He just got married. He recently tore his Achilles, and he spends his offseason, I say this jokingly and lovingly, doing drugs in the woods. And his incentives are like, win MVP, win the Super Bowl. That's not happening. But they put it in there, right? Jaire Alexander playing 18 games or 17 games in 18 weeks might seem a little silly, but I feel like that should be the upper end of the incentive scale, not 50% of the games. My God. That's a Make-A-Wish contract. That's what that is. And I think, by the way, $4 million with a chance to make $6 million, that's a nice contract for both parties. The Ravens, who are trying to get over the top, invest $4 million on the low end, could be as much as $6 million, but if it's as much as $6 million, well, actually, I won't even say that. I normally in instances like this, I'd say, but if they end up paying $6 million, they're getting the player the full year, which is not the case. If they pay $6 million, Jaire plays 50% of the season, which has been what he's playing, which is why he's been cut. So it's a little silly to me, but still. This contract came out, and so many Packers people wanted to take a victory lap today. Packers fans was like, see, he didn't get anything. Like, we didn't get $1 million. He didn't get Eric Stokes or Josh Myers money. That's a nice little 1-year prove-it deal, especially if he only has to play in half the games to make an extra $2 million. I can't believe that. I cannot believe that the upper end of the incentive scale is play half of the games, which is the reason he's available in the first place. I think this is a nice deal for the Ravens. I think it's a nice deal for Jaire. I'm skeptical that the Packers offered him that much. Do you think they should have? Forget whether or not Jaire's camp would have taken it. I don't think they were taking it based on what we've heard. I saw that Jaire Alexander's father was on ESPN Milwaukee today. And in all seriousness, a bastion of good takes and excellent journalism. He said on ESPN Milwaukee today with Brust, Kyle, and Nortman, with their afternoon show, that if the Packers had offered that, he would have stayed. I don't buy that because people like Tom Silverstein have been telling me all offseason he was never taking it. No matter what it was, he was never taking a pay cut. So I don't believe that. But Packers fans, just play along. Would you, if you ran the Packers, have given Jaire $4 million plus $2 million to play 50%? 50% is such a joke. Would you have given him that contract? Do you think that would have been a smart contract for the Packers? If it's smart for the Ravens, in my opinion, it's smart for the Packers. Two teams trying to get over the top. 608-321-1670. Let's take some calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's Darnell.
Hey, Darnell.
Hey, I would probably give him that contract. I think it makes a lot more sense for the Packers than it does for the Ravens.
Explain that.
Actually, well, the Packers have potential needs on the cornerback position. I didn't see that for the Ravens at all. This seems like a surplus pickup for the Ravens.
It's a depth piece for sure, yeah. Probably more of a depth piece than it is for Green Bay. But what is the Ravens' issue been? All those guys have gotten hurt every year on their back end, right? Whether it's Humphrey or Kyle Hamilton who got hurt.
I mean, I would say that the Ravens' issues lie more on their offense kind of crap in the bed every time they get to the playoffs. And whether that means that because they're a warm weather team or whatever it is, I know, they just seem to flounder a little bit in January, which I don't know. This signing kind of feels like Brewers fans that are excited for Mitchell and Perkins to come back, as if that's going to raise up their level of play when they already have people in those positions. You know what I mean? The Ravens already have cornerbacks. So unless there's injuries, right, which injuries happen, but it doesn't seem like they just filled a void. No, there wasn't a void there to fill.
Interesting. Do you think the Packers offered him that much?
No.
I don't think they did either.
I don't, because I think that Goody's a little bit of a cheapskate because he's a Wisconsin sports GM.
If I had to wager, Brian Gutekunst probably believes that Jaire Alexander should be cutting the Packers a check, not the other way around. Brian Gutekunst is probably bewildered that he's offering Jaire any money to come back and play. And I think part of that is probably fair. Like, they've been throwing money away on a part-time player for 3 years. But the alternative, Darna, and this is important, the alternative is lose him for nothing and eat 17 or, how many millions they're going to eat this year. So the option was rather limited, or the options were rather limited. So to pay $4 million and maybe a little extra for Jaire, yeah, if I were the Packers, I probably would have done that, but I'm not going to slam him for not.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I definitely would have done that specific deal. But also, like you said, the incentives are ridiculous. He basically just has to do what he's been doing for the last 5 years, and he gets the full contract, right? Which is play about half the games. I don't know. If he's on the field, he's good, except when he gets hurt on the field and tries to play through it or doesn't try. It's been a little bit of a circus the last 3 years. It's nice to not have to deal with that anymore, but it's also we're going to miss having a really, really high-end cornerback when he can play. So, whatever. good for the Ravens, but I don't think that makes them more of a Super Bowl candidate than they were.
I don't think. I mean, you could put prime Reggie White on that. They're not winning a Super Bowl. I hate to be so dismissive, and I hate to spoil the season, quite frankly, because part of the reason is, or part of the excitement of the season was you don't know how it's going to end. I'll tell you how it's going to end, or I'll tell you how it's not going to end with the Ravens in the Super Bowl out of the AFC. It's not going to happen. I am excited to watch him play on that team because, like, we could see him matched up in moments against Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, which would be really fun. Like, that's going to be fun. In theory, it should have been fun the last couple of years, had he been able to play against the Vikings or the Lions or the Bears. They have good players, too. Not that we got to see it very often, but that's neither here nor there. Let's take another call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Louie in Eau Claire.
Hey, Louie. What's going on?
Hey, I'm just kind of jumping on. I don't know if you kind of been. I heard you and Bill talking a little bit about the ed policy comments here earlier today. I don't know if you brought that up or not.
Oh, yeah. We've been chatting about it.
To me, and I like Mark Murphy, and I think ed policies work with the Packers for quite some time now, right? He's been in the organization for a decade plus, I believe. I like Mark Murphy. I think he did a good job. I think if there's one thing you can ding him for is just kind of overall kind of clumsy communication from time to time, the way he phrased things. If there's anything you could knock him on for, it's that. I love that he did the online chats, and then he was actually pretty forthcoming when he, talking about the Packers. And then ed policy's first time, he kind of clunkily says, make sure the Packers stay in Green Bay. All he had to say was, make sure, or look after the financial well-being of the Packers organization.
Maintain financial viability for years to come. Yes.
Right. How do you kind of mess that up?
Louis, I'll tell you how he messed it up. His problem is he doesn't have a communication studies degree like myself. He's got a law degree, and how does that? What good is that in him in a job like this? It's ridiculous. They should hire someone like me. I'm much more qualified, frankly. It actually might be one of the only things that my degree is good for in the real world. He's got to go to a courtroom to use his degree. That's real applicable. That'll help with job placement.
I'm not, as you could probably tell from my wording, I'm not the most eloquent guy.
Come on.
But this is like basic stuff. How do you screw that up?
What's funny is, Louis, and that's a good call, I appreciate it, is he clearly had his points laid out. You know what I mean? He had his three things, and I heard them in multiple interviews. I heard him say this with Mike Clemens. I heard him say this with Dominique Yates, who was on with Bill earlier today, the Journal Sentinel, who posted the video clip most people were reacting to. Said, we want to win games, we want to keep the team in Green Bay, and we want to enhance our community. Bing, bang, boom. He had his 3 points. The rule of three, as Brian Curtis often tweets about. But a little tweak. Say win championships. I know that's what he means. Say it, because the fans want to hear you say it. Oh, what are we supposed to do? Placate to the fans? And as I said in the first hour, every once in a while, you need to preach to the choir too. I mean, I grew up going to Catholic church. The choir folks up there, they have their instruments and their microphones and they're singing their harmonies, but every once in a while, they need a little bit, direct some of that preaching back to them. They could use it every once in a while. Every once in a while, you got to preach to the choir, placate the fans. Say, we don't just want to win games, we want to win championships. Nothing in practice is going to change. It's just window dressing, but sometimes window dressing matters. And to keep the Packers in Green Bay, he's basically saying we need to keep the ship afloat. As a small market, publicly owned team, we have certain pitfalls and traps that we need to avoid and navigate. There you go. Don't need a law degree to say that. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Hello?
Am I on?
Yes. Who's this?
Oh, sorry, Grant.
No, you're all good.
Hey, all good. I just wanted to talk about Jaire.
Yes.
I think Goody probably offered him the minimum because all the other stuff, like we can't compare the contracts that the Packers offered him to something a different organization offered him because we had all the extracurriculars, like the stuff. I think Goody was just done. And he probably offered him the minimum, said take it or leave it with incentives, and that was it.
They love to talk about how they have a walk-away price. You know what I mean? Let's frame it this way. If I would have had to pick, do you think Brian Gutekunst offered Jaire a number closer to $6 million a year or the minimum? I would say the minimum. It might have been a little bit more than
would
a
also
minimum,
say the minimum.
but I think that's a safe bet knowing how they operate.
So I think they were done with him, and they just said, figure it out somewhere else.
Yeah. Which sometimes the split is fine. And I think financially and on the field, the damage had mostly been done the last couple of years. Like, he played 50% of the games. And you heard Goody say that when he was asked last week or the week before. He's like, so why didn't you just give it a try this year? He's like, well, that's what we've been doing, and it hasn't been working. So I don't think they were content on giving it a try one more year, unless it was for almost next to nothing, which Jaire obviously didn't want to take.
Right. And I think they also knew that the situation was kind of dead as it was. So move on somewhere else.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good call. And I saw one Packers person. It was probably Bukowski, because it's always Bukowski. I think he was tweeting earlier, look, taking an incentive-laden one-year deal with a new team feels different than taking a massive pay cut with your current team, even if the result is the same. And I guess I buy into that a little bit. It was reported today that Jaire turned down more money to be elsewhere. I don't know how much more, and I don't know if that means from the Packers or from another suitor. I don't know. These are the things that we can pick at and continue to talk about. I don't think this contract vindicates the Packers in some way, and I know like Packers people are throwing this in the same basket with what happened with Josh Myers, what happened with Eric Stokes. I think this is a little different. I don't know that the Packers are vindicated, but I also don't know that the Packers are to blame, because I think he just got hurt. I actually think Jaire Alexander is probably their best draft pick in the last 10 years. We'll see what happens with Jordan Love, but I think at this moment in time, I'd say Jaire, and he just got hurt, which is buzzard's luck. I'm not going to hold the Packers' feet to the fire on that. We'll continue to talk about this. I think this is a fascinating conversation. We'll be right back.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Big River Rally coming to La Crosse, Wisconsin, June 27th and 28th. Don't miss the excitement on the main stage. Friday night, it's Texas Hippie Coalition. And Saturday night, Drowning Pool. Tickets are on sale now. Want more? Follow Big River Rally on social or go to BigRiverRally.com.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Is cornerback a position of need in Baltimore? You heard Sheffy referencing he's joining a team that's pretty stacked across the board.
Yeah, not a frontline need in terms of starting a game tomorrow, needing him on the field for the very first snap, Laura, but this is a team that last year struggled to defend the pass, as you noted. And Jaire Alexander, the best part of this deal, in my opinion, is the fact that it is a one-year deal. This is a motivated player who, over the past 4 seasons, has been just as likely to be on the field as he is off the field. So Jaire Alexander has a chance to play for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, does not need to be a starter because the Ravens feel really good about their starting trio of Nate Wiggins, the first-round pick last year, of course, Marlon Humphrey, and also Chidobe Awuzie, who they signed this offseason after he was released by the Titans. But the kind of move that the Baltimore Ravens can make in June, that can sort of be like a finishing ingredient for a team that feels like it has the recipe to be a Super Bowl champion this year, Lewis.
Yo, this is Jaire here. I'm excited to be a part of the Ravens flock, baby. Let's get to this money.
I'm excited to be a part of the Ravens flock. Let's get to this money. That was from the Ravens social media account earlier today. I play that NFL Live clip just because I think it's insane. We've just watched the Ravens come up short so many times. Like, at some point, I'm just going to stop expecting them to beat the Chiefs. Even when they're having their best year yet, and Lamar's never looked this good. Okay, all right. Well, I would bet my net worth that the worst game of his season is going to be in the playoff game that they lose to the Chiefs, who won't be having their best season, who won't have a loaded roster. Patrick Mahomes won't be playing his best football, and they'll get it done, and the Ravens won't. And I would also be surprised if Jaire makes the full season. In fact, his incentives, and we learned today, he can earn $500K for each of his following playing time thresholds: 35%, 40%, 45%, and 50%. That's not exactly a tall task. And I see people on Twitter like, well, he's only played 50% of the games. Like, that's going to be a tough threshold to beat. People, if he misses the same amount of games this year that he's missed over the last 3, he will max out his contract. That's not a difficult threshold. If he doesn't hit the threshold, his contract will be a massive failure, and Jaire might just be done. 608-321-1670 if you have any thoughts. If you have anything that you'd like to add. The Brewer game has been postponed at Wrigley. Both teams and respective reporters have announced. The Brewers just tweeted a statement. Due to inclement weather, tonight's game versus the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field has been postponed. The game will be played as part of a doubleheader tomorrow, obviously, right? Because they played them. Actually, August 18th at 1:20 p.m. So we'll pick this up in a couple months, which I realize it's not as simple as just play the other game tomorrow. It seems like it should be that easy. But as I said, I only have a communications degree. I'm not as smart as the people making these decisions. Some texts. 608-321-1670. Rockin' Rick says, taking Jaire is making their mistake early this year. So the Ravens are getting their missteps out of the way with early, so they'll be good to go. They'll be in the clear in the playoffs. It's a creative line of thinking. Jared and DeForest, if the offer was the minimum and Jaire's camp wasn't biting, why did it take so long in negotiations? The language all along was, at the very least, not unpleasant when discussing the contract. I have to think Goody wanted to keep Jaire under fair terms. Jaire, when healthy, is a top corner. That alone warrants more than a minimum offer. The when healthy part forces Goot's hand to lower the contract. Jaire wanted more but didn't get it. Picked a team with little to ask of him and a title aspiration. Yeah, I just don't know that the Packers offered him much more than the minimum. It's not sourced. I'm just guessing. I originally talked myself into, well, the other option's paying him 17 or losing him for nothing. So what if they tried to meet in the middle? Somewhere around 5, 6, 7, 8 million. I thought that maybe that would make sense. I'd be surprised if the Packers offered that much. And again, based on what we've been told, it was a non-starter from the beginning that Jaire was playing for any sort of restructured deal in Green Bay. Now, maybe that's because the restructure never ever came close to anything more than the minimum, and that's why it was a non-starter. Or maybe it's because the Packers said, well, what if we start negotiating at 4 or 5? And Jaire's camp said, nuh-uh. And the Packers said, okay, well then we're just done. We'll give it a couple of weeks, see if someone around the league blows out their knee, and until mandatory minicamp rolls around and you force our hand, we're just going to drag this out. Why did they drag it out? Because they could. And because they truly, really didn't want to lose him for nothing. At the end, they just didn't have any choice, but it wasn't through lack of effort or patience, right? They just ran out of time. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Tony from Texas.
Hey, Tony.
I heard Jaire was offered Packers stock. He just said no.
If I were him, I would have taken it, but that's just me. I think it's worth more than money.
I want to talk to you about this.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about the Packers stock because I am pro Packers stock. And this is why. This is no different than NIL or a GoFundMe. This is why we keep the team in Green Bay.
It's part of it.
And,
yeah.
I mean, it's a big part of it, right? It keeps, the Titletown district. That's why we had the draft. I'll pump in as much money as I can to Green Bay Packer football because, Grant, from September to January, I don't care what's going on in my life unless it's something really, really important. That's number one. Green Bay Packer football for those 4 or 5 months.
I thought Lombardi said God, family, and the Green Bay Packers in that order, Tony.
Seriously, think about what you do in the fall. What is more important? You hang out with your girlfriend, maybe your family a little bit, go to church?
Yeah. I mean, football on the weekends. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the foliage.
By the way, I thought you said atheist. But you said Mathist.
About what?
You hear that? It's something about math. You were talking about math. I caught the tail end, like math.
Yeah, I went to Catholic elementary school. So we'd go to mass as a class, as a school during the week, and then I would go with my parents on the weekend.
Ah, got it. Were you good at math?
Mass with an S. Are you asking if I was good at mass or good at math?
Oh, okay. I gotcha. It's not very clear on this.
I said I went to Catholic school. I didn't say I went to math school. That would make more sense. Catholic and mass. You went to? Didn't you go to a Catholic school? You went to St. Rita's.
I did. You know what? I haven't gone to. When's the last time you gone to confession?
I'm sorry. Did you say confession or concession? The last time I went to confession, I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know. It's going to make for a hell of a story next time I sit down with a priest, though. Father, I don't even know the last time I was in here.
A true story. I dated a Ravens fan last month, and it was not for the right reasons. I wanted an Under Armour deal, so I was dating this girl as a Ravens fan. I have to tell you that.
Did she also work at Under Armour, or
you worked at Under Armour?
Okay, well that's all right. Did she work at the store? Was she a retail merchant?
She was corporate exec.
Oh.
No, she was high up. I have to disclose that, Grant. You got to. You would be a great priest. I feel very comfortable with you.
Interesting. I would make a great priest. Well, my point was every once in a while, Tony, you need to preach to the choir, right? And that's why when Ed Policy starts talking about our goal is to win games, just say win championships. The congregation will eat that up. And every once in a while, you got to placate.
Really quick on Policy. Do you
Sure.
trust him? Yes or no?
Yeah. So trust him to do what?
Just to do the right thing.
Yeah. I think he's been groomed and trained exactly for this to do the things that they want him to do. And those things have been working by and large.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I like the Policy hire. And, I don't think much is going to change, really. It sounds like he wants to be his own guy, but the contract team of Goot, and did you talk about that with Goot and
yeah.
LaFleur? You talked.
I think, and I'm just a hot take radio guy, I think there's a little bit more pressure on Goody and Matt LaFleur this season than I would have thought a month or two ago.
Agreed.
I don't think they're on the hot seat per se, but I think they're closer to being on the hot seat than they are to getting big time extensions.
Hey, it's Titletown, baby. Got to win.
Yeah, that and I don't know. Well, let me ask you before I go, Tony. At this moment in time, if you had to bet your house or whatever on the Packers winning a Super Bowl with LaFleur and Goody, would you bet yes or no?
No.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm getting at. Thank you, Tony. That's a good call. Clean out your ears. Mass with an S. And even if you can't hear clearly, use some contextual clues here. We're talking about church and preaching. Why would I? And math is not a thing you even go to. Listen. Thank you, Tony, though. I do love your calls. Sorry you couldn't close the deal with that. Well, it sounds like you closed the deal with the lady, just not the deal that you were trying to close. Hopefully it was an enriching experience for both of you in the meantime. Because life's not always about the destination. Sometimes it's about the journey too. I think most Packers fans, and by most, I mean like 60, 65%, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, would bet against them winning a Super Bowl with this current regime. And I don't think Goody's a bad general manager, and I don't think Matt LaFleur's a bad coach. I just think they're slightly below their best peers. I'm really struggling to figure out how to word this. I think Matt LaFleur is just below the elite tier of coaches, and I think Brian Gutekunst is the same in his field. Good GM, very good GM. Is he great? I don't know about that. But do you fire the guy who's really, really good to chase the guy who's great? That can get you in trouble too. Right? This is what we're weighing. This is what we're balancing. This is what Ed Policy's got to figure out over the next year. I'll take some of your calls on the other side if you have anything to say. Otherwise, we're going to get to Mike Clemens one-on-one with the man, Packers president and CEO to be in just a couple of weeks. Ed Policy. You'll hear that conversation that Mike had with him one-on-one when we come back. And anything that you have to add on the phone lines as we begin to wind down the show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. A little breaking news. Brewer game tonight's been postponed, rescheduled to August. I thought that maybe they could find a way to do them both tomorrow, but the logistics and the travel and I don't know. But I'm sure there's a reason they can't. Otherwise, they would. Your thoughts continuously welcomed here. 608-321-1670. Luke on the dirt roads on the topic of Jaire says, Grant, I wish I could earn 150% of my salary just for showing up half the time. Not a very confident view of Jaire's durability. IMO. Yeah, so I'm with you. I can't believe his performance escalators or his incentives. He starts making extra money if he can play 35%, 40%, 45%, and 50% of the snaps, meaning the tippy top high end of his incentive pay scale is play half the games, which is what he's been hitting, which is why he was available. What is this? Like, hey, can you make it to week 13? Hey, 50%. If you can make it to week 8, man, you're going to be rolling in the dough. Yeah, that's been the problem. Anyways, I've yelled about this enough. I want to, one more time for you this evening, play Mike Clemens had an excellent one-on-one with Packers president and CEO to be Ed Policy. Here you go.
All right. Thanks with the Packers' new president and chief executive officer, Ed Policy. Hi, Ed. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Thanks so much for coming to Lambeau Field.
You know, I think about your father, Carmen, with the 49ers and then later the Browns. You get the law degree, which I think serves a guy in this role so well, not only for player contracts, but the contracts you use to the buildings that you have gone. Commissioner of the Arena Football League, and then you get involved in the NFL. Then it gets to be 2012. And how did it come about that you joined the Packers? What made your decision to join the staff here?
Sure. So at the time, as you'd pointed out, I had a background in professional football, and I was working for the National Football League after the Arena Football League as a consultant. And my dream was to work for a team, though. And at the time, I had a short list of about 5 teams that I would love to work for. Now, there are only 32 of them, so you pretty much go where the work is. But there were 5 that I'd really be excited about joining, and the Packers were one of them. The Packers happened to have an opening. I didn't know Mark Murphy at the time, but Mark was going to be in New York, and he had hired a search firm. He had hired a gentleman named Jed Hughes to help him with this recruitment. And when Mark was in New York, I interviewed with him at his hotel, and we hit it off, and I was here a few months later.
In 2019, Mark decides to make a change in terms of structure, where the general manager, the head coach, vice president of finance report to the president and CEO. What have you thought about that now as you take over?
Yeah, well, I was with Mark. I was in the room with Mark when he decided to make that change. And, you know, I think he made it for sound reasons. And I think it's worked out well so far. I really do. I think we've got 3 excellent people in football leadership positions right now, and they're all working extremely well together. So you just can't argue with results. I think it's worked. I would continue to keep that structure for the time being and continue to keep those 3 individuals in their current roles. You know, we've got flexibility. If we ever feel that that structure is not working for us, we can certainly change the structure to whatever form we think would be best. Ultimately, we're here to do what's best for the Green Bay Packers organization, so that's what we'll do.
I think what's unique about your appointment is, I mean, you've been here through all these things, through Titletown, renovations to the football operations building, the NFL draft. So in your first year here, what do you see as the next big thing for the franchise?
The Packers, the entire organization really exists for three things and three things only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community. So I'll be really focused on those three things, and the next big thing will be a kind of a culmination of all of them. I mean, we will continue first and foremost to focus on fielding a very competitive football team that's hopefully competing for championships. On the keep the Packers in Green Bay, the big things there will be continuing to maintain and evolve Lambeau Field so that it remains not just iconic, but also state-of-the-art. We also have to continue to operate a very sound business so that it can support the strong football team. And then we do have to continue to strengthen our community through things like Titletown, other philanthropic efforts, and just all the community involvement that we have.
Last year, your division, Vikings, Lions, all go to the playoffs. You, and now the Bears with Ben Johnson, head coach. Impressive guy. How do you see this season rolling out for the Packers?
It's pretty exciting because I don't think the entire NFL has ever been more competitive than it is right now. And I think our division is not only the most competitive division in football right now, but maybe in the history of the NFL. So I think it's exciting. I think we've got our work cut out for us, but so do they.
As Packers president and CEO, Ed Policy. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks so much.
How about that, Mike Clemens? Nice little back and forth. 4 minutes, all we need. I don't need the chit chat. I don't need the grab it. Just, hey, where'd you come from? Your family background. What's your thoughts? And I do think the structure on or the structure between general manager, CEO, head coach, I think it's important because remember when Mike McCarthy was fired, Mark Murphy switched that around, said everyone's going to report to me. We're not going to have this chain of command. I'm in charge. And Mark Murphy at the time calling his shot a little bit says I need to wrap my arms around this franchise. I need to get control of what's going on here. And I think when it happened, a lot of us were like, all right, we'll see what Mark Murphy's made of. We'll see how this Matt LaFleur era, this Brian Gutekunst Matt LaFleur era goes. And it's gone pretty well. And I think it's gone better post Aaron Rodgers than many people would have guessed. I think a lot of people thought when Rodgers is gone, it comes crashing down and it's the dark ages. And while they haven't won a Super Bowl, it certainly hasn't been the dark ages. So now we wait to see if Ed Policy makes any decisions or makes any changes now moving forward, because he said, we're not going to do a lame duck. We're not going to do it. So after this season, they're either extended or they're gone. And I think they're very, very tight at the hip. I think if one goes, they both go, because I think they're both the same person. I think they're both very good at their job. They're not great. They're a slight tier below the best of the best. And I don't know if you're winning a Super Bowl with that combo. You certainly could do a lot worse. And that's the risk you run when you consider firing or moving on from people like that. Just ask Chris McIntosh. All right, we'll take a couple minute break, 3 minutes. Plenty of time for your phone calls in the last segment. If you have anything to add, we can react a little bit. Stanley Cup Finals, the Brewers last night, and anything else going on before we wrap up the show at 6 o'clock.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
No, they would never let him leave. I mean, the franchise is on the map really right now because of Connor McDavid. I couldn't even imagine that franchise if he left. That will be his decision. And then you play that game, right? If the Oilers
But
figure out,
Leaves,
hey,
they did this in the 80s. They did this once before with the.
but they had
right.
a lot more depth. I mean, obviously it was Gretzky, but they had a lot more depth. They got
Okay.
probably 7 or 8 Hall of Famers from that team. And right now it's Draisaitl, and Connor McDavid.
But is he going to
And so-
want to go, Steve? They're going to want to keep him.
Yeah.
But does he say, I've gone as far as I can go?
I mean, that's the question. He's changed agents recently, Dan. I don't know what that means, but that's probably a factor in all of this. I think he's a loyal guy. He's made Edmonton his home. I think he loves it there with his family. I don't know that. And we're going to find out soon. Like, we could have this answer in 2 weeks, and that's the issue. If the Oilers feel like, hey, we're not going to be able to sign this guy no matter how much money we throw at him, they can't let him walk to free agency. You can't get nothing in return for the guy.
It's a little bit of Steve Levy on the Dan Patrick Show this morning. Anybody thoughts, or if anybody has any thoughts on the conclusion of the Stanley Cup Finals? Couple of minutes. I can take some phone calls here before the end of the show. It's been kind of touch and go because we had Mike and then 2 little interviews that Mike had, but a couple minutes here. Wide open phone line, 608-321-1670. I was bummed because I didn't even turn on the Stanley Cup Finals last night until a couple minutes in the first period had gone by. It was maybe almost towards the end of the first period. And it's 2-0 Florida. I'm like, okay, well, they're done. Like, Stu Skinner lets up a couple early goals and it's done. It's over. You can't come back on this Florida defense, or Edmonton has shown that they can't. A good Stanley Cup Finals and certainly a worthy champion and a pretty good series. I thought it had the potential to be great, and we just never really saw Edmonton at their best. They were able to win a couple of games, but like there were moments where we watched Florida, like that's why they're Florida. We didn't really have those moments other than Draisaitl and McDavid making a couple of plays around the net. Like we never really had a game where it's like, man, there's Edmonton doing Edmonton things. So there has been some Connor McDavid noise today. It's like, well, what's next? Which is fair. I don't like always assuming that a guy's going to get traded or demand out when they lose, but what would be next for Edmonton? The only team we don't do this for is the Ravens. The Ravens always lose when they have the circumstances perfect for them. And then it's like, all right, we're going to forget this. And next year we'll just talk about how they're going to win again. So maybe some teams need more of this, but I'm not surprised at some of the McDavid and the Oilers takes getting thrown around today. 608-321-1670. Let's wrap up the show with a call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. It's Clemhead Mike.
Hey, Clemhead. What's going on?
Well, it was nice to hear Mike Clemens again today. Like I told you before, he's the reason I had my name legally changed to Clemhead Mike. But
I love it when it's a surprise, too. Like all of a sudden I look down and the phone is ringing and I know it's Mike. It's the best.
Oh, thanks, Grant. Yeah, I feel kind of bad, too. I totally forgot about the Stanley Cup last night. I don't normally watch hockey, but I was really going to watch that game last night. I really wanted to. But anyway, suck it, Canada. USA keeps the cup.
Yeah, I guess we have that. Like, I wanted to see McDavid win one, but all right, Florida's great and suck at Canada. Like, we get to do the USA thing now. That's a nice consolation prize, even though the team that I wanted to win didn't win.
Yeah, I need to get into hockey more. I watch about 2 minutes a year. I just like the NBA. I just need to get more into hockey because I think it's something I would really enjoy. But it's so slow. I mean, not slow on the ice, but
yeah.
goals are few and far between.
Well, and the problem is it's a timing thing too. The same thing happens when I watch soccer. It's like, all right, I'm going to get into it. And then I'll watch for 10 minutes, no scoring will happen. And then I'll walk to the fridge and I'll come back and I'll have missed it. It's like,
Yep.
It always happens
Yeah,
to
that's
me.
always what happens.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's like soccer. Soccer's a good cure for insomnia. I can just sit there and kind of doze off.
And look, a lot of people love soccer. And I wish I could get it to click with me. And I'll keep trying. But I just can't. I think this Stanley Cup Finals was great because it was the same teams as last year. And I think the Four Nations thing with Canada and the United States to the final, like I think this was a year where us casual hockey fans, or at least casual right now, maybe you haven't always been a casual, maybe you used to get really into it, but it was a good year for us. We got to watch some entertaining puck.
Yeah, I did enjoy the Four Nations thing. The first USA-Canada matchup was awesome. The second one, not so much. But I actually did watch some of that. But before that, the most hockey I'd ever watched in my life was I watched the 1980 USA-Russia game, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's going back a ways.
And then there's Miracle, the movie, obviously. But it was so weird, that Four Nations thing, because I found myself angry at the TV. Like, yeah, no wonder the Leafs can never win anything. Austin Matthews can't put one of these in the net. Like, in overtime, he had a couple opportunities. I'm like, I've never cared about Austin Matthews. I've never cared about hockey. But here I find myself at the TV, like, really getting worked up about this.
Yeah, I do think what is it, 33 years now since Canada?
Something like that.
Basically, the birthplace of hockey has won a Lord Stanley's Cup. It's kind of embarrassing.
A little bit. I mean, it's interesting because, like, Montreal was so good, and had, they've had moments just not in my lifetime. I think it's a fluky, lucky thing, and it's a numbers thing. Like, I don't know how many teams there are in Canada. I think there's slightly more in the United States. There's more Canadian teams than you would think at first blush. There's actually a really good amount of them. I was looking at a map the other day because I wanted to see how far away they were from each other. But it seems like at some point they were due, and I think that's why a lot of people thought the Oilers were going to do it. If not this year, when is it going to happen for McDavid, and when is it going to happen for Canada?
Well, maybe Gretzky could come out of retirement, and
maybe
he's probably done as half those guys yet.
It's funny. I enjoyed Gretzky on the halftime. Clemhead, I got to run. I appreciate it. I enjoyed Gretzky on the post game and the halftime and the intermission. Not halftime, but you know what I mean, in between periods. And then I'll listen to a show that talks about hockey, or I'll read something and it's like Wayne Gretzky's useless on that show. It's like, okay, well, you know what? I would rather have Wayne Gretzky speak in generalities than endure Kendrick Perkins or some other slap. And Kendrick Perkins wasn't a total slap, but like just having him there, at least for me, like the halftime show, just placate me. Give me a couple names that I know. Say some very simple hockey things that kind of make it feel like, all right, you kind of know what's going on, and then I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, the halftime show discourse. Maybe we can circle back to this tomorrow. We did a little bit yesterday. Everyone's so bent up about halftime shows. It's really not the end of the world. It's really not that important. Tomorrow, we'll pick this up. Brewers Cubs will be in the afternoon, so we'll react to that tomorrow night. Have an excellent night, now free of the Brewers. Talk to you tomorrow.